14 states in 14 days. We're doing it by motorcycle. It's called Biking the Battleground. Owensboro, Kentucky. Located about 100 miles southwest of Louisville, the city of Owensboro is home to the fourth largest population in the state. Nearly 60,000 live there. And it's where a movement called Peaceably Gather took off. A campaign to keep open churches nationwide in the face of rising COVID-19 crackdowns. It's a no-compromise campaign, these pastors say. They're not going to stand idly by any longer as leftist secular governors and leftist secular health bureaucrats tell churches they have to close, even while allowing McDonald's, Walmart's, liquor stores, marijuana shops to stay open without the same social distancing, masking mandates. And Pastor Brian Gibson of his church in Owensboro is one of the outspoken patriotic pastors leading the charge against an overburdensome government.
If you look at churches across America right now, I'm hearing stats like 37% of the churches are open. And of the 37% that are open, they say they have an average. Now you got to go coast to coast. Middle of America is doing better, of about 30% attendance from pre-COVID. So if you look, 37% are open and they have a 30% attendance. So we have 4 campuses in 2 different states, 2 in Kentucky and 2 in Texas. Our Texas campuses are doing better than our Kentucky campuses. And I think it's because of the messaging of the governor of those states. Here in Kentucky, Bashir, every chance he gets tries to scare the church. And the church is the big bad wolf. You know, the coronavirus is a very religious virus, and it loves attending church. It loves going to the synagogue. It especially shows up at Jewish holidays. We saw this week in New York. And so you can feel the atmosphere is different from Texas to here. And so, but thankfully, are his church people. And I think it's because of, we believe that the church has ministered to the world in plague, pestilence, famine, war, you name it, for 2,000 years. The church doesn't shut itself down. And because we've preached that, we've taught that, we believe that, our attendance has been more across the board 65 to 70% of pre-COVID numbers.
Like a lot of churches across the nation, Pastor Gibson shut down his church because nobody knew the ultimate dangers of the coronavirus. And as the weeks went by, though, he regretted the decision.
Hindsight's 2020. I wish I never would have shut down. But I do think at that time, with the knowledge we had, it was the wisest call we could make for a period of time till we saw what we were dealing with.
Then the weeks went by, the numbers didn't match what was being put forth in the media, and it didn't justify the crackdowns from governors, especially when they were unfairly targeted.
They don't have the authority to do it. So a lot of it's just scare tactics. And that's why it's so important to understand who has what authority in the government. A lot of church leaders don't know that. A lot of Americans don't know their rights anymore. So they have no jurisdiction over the church. It's all just a veiled threat. And if you know that, you can stand strong and say, hey, you're knocking on the wrong door, buds. You know, you're out of your neighborhood. But unfortunately, most people don't understand that. And so there's been a lot of false threats and let's say tigers without teeth out there in America that have scared off the religious community. And the reason we have in America is because the religious community wasn't scared. It's that simple. You look back to the founding of the nation, the founders that we say are the champions of the revolution, they point to the pastors, who were the Patriots, the Black Robe Regiment, the guys that thundered against tyranny for 20 years. And that's why we have in America. If we're going to keep in America, it's going to be because the pastors, the clergymen, the leaders aren't afraid.
So when you look down to November, what do you see a Joe Biden win versus what do you see a Donald Trump win?
Oh, well, Joe Biden win is a win for Marxism. It's the death of America. So I think Trump, it's free market. He's been the most pro-life president we've ever had. Pro-Israel, right? Move the embassy to Jerusalem where it should be. Recognize what Israel for what it is. So from the Christian worldview, I won't comment on the faith of Trump, but I'll say Trump has been a great friend to the church so far. And so, am I saying his life's perfect? No. Am I saying he says everything right? No. But I'm saying he's been a friend to the church. And we need some friends right now.
And what do you think about socialism in America?
I think I saw an article recently that said 51% of Generation Z preferred socialism to capitalism, which is alarming, right? And I think a lot of that has happened in our education system. I remember back, I went to Colorado State. It was before I was a Christian. I failed out of Colorado State, partied my way out in the 90s, and then I found Christ after that. I had a good time skiing and, living like a frat boy. But I remember my first class there. I took chemistry. I was pre-vet, and so I had intro to chemistry, intro to biology, and the professor should have been, the title of the class should have been, "There is no God, and capitalism is of the devil." And that's what has permeated our education system through America, not only at the college level, but also in the school level, in the public schools. And I think both the conservatives and the liberals pay property taxes, and the conservatives have been too quiet about what's came out or is coming out of teachers' mouths. And so I think you have to fight it back at an educational level. I think the church has to do a better job of educating our kids. I think we have to do a better job of educating our congregations as a whole, because they do not understand, most of them don't understand the Constitution. I was talking to some 20-year-olds recently, and they asked about why I was traveling the country, why I was fighting to open up churches, and I'm like, I'm protecting our First Amendment rights. And they didn't know what the First Amendment was. 21-year-old kids. But yeah, it's education, it's fighting back, and it's pushing back. It's speaking out. It's not being afraid. It's being bold.
And what do you tell those who think Christians ought to just sit quietly by and be governed by the elected leaders the Bible tells them that God put in place? What do you say to those who think that being Christian means being docile and timid?
Isaiah, you read through Isaiah, it's one prophetic declaration against one kingdom, against another kingdom, against another kingdom. John the Baptist lost his head, right? Literally, for calling out Herod. Jesus spoke against 4 different political groups whenever Jesus was preaching. Jesus was very political. A lot of people don't understand that. So this idea that came through the Johnson Amendment that pastors can't be political has no foothold in biblical revelation. It's all simply a secular play to shut the mouth of the prophet.
Yep, it's all aimed at shutting the mouth of the Christians and keeping them from getting involved in politics. Next stop, last stop, West Virginia. It's called Biking the Battleground, and I can't wait to meet you on the road.